And it's Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion, Radio Indianapolis at the American Legion, Sons of the American Legion National Convention, and I have a chance to talk to our national commander from New York State, and that is Greg Gibbs. Greg, good to see you. You've had a terrific year. What was it like today leading the general session?
It truly was amazing. A little bit of a swan song, and so you do get some feelings about, wow, it's over soon. But when I saw all the donations come in and the support and the hours and all the reports that were given, just truly amazing. We had a banner year in both membership and donations across the board. The Sons raised over $10 million for Legion Charities this year. It was just a fantastic year. So leading that this year was like, wow, what a capstone on the year. It was great.
Well, Doc, tell us a little more detail, some great programs on the charities, the child welfare program, and supporting the Legion's effort to help the Coast Guard when they weren't going to get paid due to the national government shutdown. Tell us about the programs in particular that the charitable efforts were able to benefit this year.
Well, obviously, Child Welfare Foundation was one of my pet projects for the year. It's always been one of the Sons' main things that we focus on. And we were holding a goal of reaching an $8 million mark by August. We reached that goal in December. And that is just the amazing part to me. The Child Welfare Foundation, a lot of people don't know what that means. It's merely a funding agency. They let out requests for proposals, and people can write to the Child Welfare Foundation, send in an RFP, and request money. So places you have heard of do get money from the Child Welfare Foundation, like the Child Organ Transplant Association, Juvenile Diabetes, March of Dimes, the health, all the health kind of facilities that you've ever heard of tend to tap into that grant. We gave over $700,000 out in grants last year alone from that fund. And that's why when people say, well, gee, I'd like to donate to it, but I'd like to keep my money local. Your money is local through CWF because your local charities can apply for funds from that fund.
Hey, that's so important. Now, you've traveled all over the world and on 40 different trips. Starting, one of the big ones you started out with was a trip to Pearl Harbor for the December 7th anniversary. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, some of your early trips.
Well, everybody is clearly aware of Pearl Harbor, and Pearl Harbor is why my father joined the service. He and his two brothers signed up on the Monday after Pearl Harbor, and my father fought in the Pacific campaign. But that was not my first time to Hawaii, but my first time to Pearl Harbor. But one of the more important parts was the person who guided us along our tour while we were in Pearl Harbor was a Pearl Harbor native. An Asian man, and he was a child when Pearl Harbor happened, and he had amazing first-hand experiences and stories that he shared with us, and it was just so amazing to hear that from somebody who was 7 years old at the time in the food market when the Japanese planes came over, and he had the complete background of what happened and how it happened, and he took us to all kinds of great sites at Pearl Harbor. It was amazing. This year, unfortunately, was the first year that they did not have Pearl Harbor survivors there. They're all elderly, and no one was able to make the trip. They had World War II survivors, and we all thanked them and talked with them. But unfortunately, no Pearl Harbor survivors. They're getting fewer and fewer as the years go by.
Absolutely. I know your dad is very close to you, as my dad was, who I honor in the Sons of American Legion, who fought in World War II in the U.S. Army. Tell us a little bit about your dad's service in the U.S. military.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Again, my dad and his two brothers. So I come from a 3 Blue Star family of World War II. My dad and his brothers joined right after Pearl Harbor. My dad quit high school. He was actually 15 at the time, but by the time he actually got signed up in training, went in the Marine Corps in Parris Island, by that time he was actually 16 years old. And he wound up in Marine First Aviation Wing and wound up in the Pacific. But when you were in the aviation wing of the Marines, when you land, you're an infantryman. So he did a lot of island hopping. He was on Iwo Jima, Saipan, and Tinian, which a lot of people say, Tinian, what's that? That was the island that we took over the air base from the Japanese because it was the closest air base to Tokyo, Japan. And that's the air base where the Enola Gay took off that eventually dropped the atom bomb on Japan. So my dad was a part of all of that campaign. He was a member of 65 different men in his squadron, and I remember very clearly when I was a young boy, he said only 12 of them finished the war. So he was in some rough places.
Yes, and that's what's special about our organization, honoring the service of our fathers and family members. Now, you had a big trip to Europe in the spring to Normandy for the D-Day anniversary, a worldwide commemoration of that event, and you were there representing us. Tell us what were some of the highlights for you being in Normandy this year?
Normandy was fantastic. We landed in Paris, then quickly took a bus out to the coast of Normandy, and we got to tour the beaches, got to actually see the beaches. We got to hear President Trump speak and really address the world for the 75th anniversary of D-Day. But I was most impressed with the small French towns we went in, and the people would run up to you and go, American, American, and they would slap you on the back and say, merci, merci, and they would try to give you a bottle of wine or try to give you a drink or a bottle of water. I was really impressed at how the French really are thankful. When I came home, I mentioned that to my wife, and she said, well, were those World War II aged people? I said, no, they weren't. They were 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. And then it hit me even more that the people in Europe, they are educating their youth about what the Americans have done for Europe. That impressed me more than anything else.
Well, I've had the same experience in France, people coming up to me and saying thank you for the service of American GIs liberating their country. Tell us about you. You visit a lot of places. What were some of the couple other places that you visited that really stood out for you?
There's, like Ken mentioned earlier, 40 different invitations, 158 days on the road altogether. Did a polar plunge in Maryland in the middle of February in the cold ocean water, which was amazing, but we raised a lot of money for Special Olympics at that particular time. Went to Colorado for the Colorado Shooting Sports Finals of the youth shooting sports, and 2 women won those games. Just unbelievable. Got to be at the World Series for Legion Baseball, where Idaho took the pennant. Again, great camaraderie, great youth. When you see the youth involved in those kinds of things, I was also at the oratorical contest. When you see the youth, you know that the country's in good hands. There's some amazing youth out there.
Well, it's terrific, and you're leading an organization that's growing. You mentioned the membership is up 4,000 in the year. Why is the organization growing? What are some of the things that are attracting new members?
Well, that's a tough one because I think there's so many reasons that people do become members. I mean, obviously, some of us have become members to honor our father's service. Some people become members literally to help out at the posts. Some of us become members to get involved in the charitable organizations that we help to fund. So there's many different reasons. I think right now there's a good climate towards veterans, very different than it was in the 1970s when Vietnam veterans were coming home. So I think it's a good time to be associated with a veterans group. And I think the youth today see that. Their parents are educating them well in the fact that service members are sacrificing their lives for us every single day. Only about 2% of the actual U.S. population serves. So I think it's a combination of some of those reasons.
Well, you mentioned how much time you spent on the road this year, and all the years of work leading up to this. We've known each other at least a decade, serving in the Sons of the American Legion. Tell us, is there a final thought when you preside your last meeting as National Commander tomorrow? Is there a final thought that you're going to have for the group?
Just to keep the momentum going. The momentum's been building for last few commanders. There have been different times when we've had commander changes and everything changes. And that has not happened in the last few years. The commanders have all been on similar pages, similar focuses, similar things moving forward. And I guess my final thought would be keep the momentum going. We have a great organization. We give back so much to our community, state, and nation. We hope that that just continues.
Okay, Greg Doc Gibbs, our national commander. So proud to see you in this role, and congratulations. Thank you from everybody for all the great work you did this year in leading our organization, the Sons of American Legion.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it.
Okay, good to see us. Ken Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio in Indianapolis at the National Convention.